All right, hello class. Again, I have injured myself over the summer break, or the spring break, and that has put me a little bit behind, and I'm sorry for that. We all do the best we can. This reading lecture, however, is going to get us started on 2 chapters in the reading book that we will test on Thursday. I will do a quick review with you on Thursday, because I won't do any review on vocabulary. I already got a lecture up there to help you with that review. So when we come into class on Thursday, I'm going to review chapter 5 and 6. Maybe I'll have you quickly do 1 or 2 mastery tests if we need it, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you the test for vocabulary 3 pages and reading 3 pages. It's just going to be 1 test, and I'm going to talk about some special accommodations I'm going to make for you because of the weather delay and because of my injury, which has thrown all of the class a little bit behind. So, as I said at the beginning of class, I do the best I can as a teacher, you do the best you can as students, and we're just going to soldier on, and we're going to get the work done, and we're going to do it the best we can. So this lecture represents the best I can be as your teacher. So the lecture is going to cover 2 chapters. Both of them have to do with relationships, so they're connected. They have similar ideas. As I go through, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and do some of the practices to make sure that you have those correct. So here in chapter 5, I hope you have your book open to page 181. If you don't have your book open now, please open it to 181 and then start the video again. Pause it and get your books. So we are all, I hope you at home and me here, we are on page 181. That's the beginning of chapter 5, relationships number 1. In relationships 1, you see we're talking about 2 types of relationship. One is an addition, kind of a listing relationship, and the other is time. Perhaps I've mentioned this in class before, but if not, I'll tell you that when we talk about addition, it doesn't matter the order. Think about addition transitions as giving a list of items. It doesn't matter the order. You can think of these lists like going grocery shopping. It doesn't matter if you get eggs, milk, and bread, or bread, milk, and eggs. It's just a list of items. The order doesn't really matter. However, if I'm telling you how to make a loaf of bread, then that's time order, because you have to do things according to time order and look for time transition signals that show that order. And of course, you can't mix it up. In giving instructions to somebody, you have to follow the steps in the order of time that they give, or else it just doesn't work. So you couldn't take the bread out of the oven and serve it before you combine the ingredients and bake it, obviously. All right, so I'm just showing you the example, the difference between addition and time. Addition doesn't matter the order. Time must be in a logical order according to what's given. And usually this is some kind of instructions or steps in a process, things to do. All right? So, they give you those 2 on page 181. Let's turn to 182. Very important for you to recognize that transition signals serve as a bridge between the ideas. Okay, and then they give you a little example here that you can, I hope, see. Talking to the lady. You can see in their examples here that this one is the easier one to read because it has a transition signal that shows us these 2 ideas are connected. I'll let you read the cartoons yourself. Okay, the next thing is these words. These are common addition words. The only thing I want to say about this is, in this block, some of these work for time and list. So don't be confused. You always must think, is this a list of items that doesn't matter the order, or is the order very important? So I could say, first, come into class and sit down and open your books. Second, open your books to page 183. And you see that you can't do those out of order. First you have to sit down, then you have to open your book. So even though I'm using addition words, sometimes those words can be used also as time words. What's the difference? You're thinking about it. Can these be rearranged, or can they not be rearranged? That tells you whether these words are being used as addition or list. Now I'd like you to pause the video and do practice 1. I am going to continue now with our next section. Here I'm looking at page 185, and here we're talking about our time words. And as you can see in this list, that these words show a time relationship for the most part. Following, that means something happens and then something follows, later, after, when, whenever, and sometimes you even have phrases, throughout the 1920s or by 2018. So these are phrases that talk about time. These are obvious, right? They always show by the end of the month. That's clearly time. These are not so clear, but I want you to become familiar with them. So if you don't know any of those words, you might go ahead and look those up. I already mentioned tip 1 at the bottom, that some transition words have the same meaning. That's for a list and for, these are talking about synonyms. Oh yeah, they're talking about some of the words have the same meaning, they just change them in order to avoid repetition. You don't always keep saying also, also, also. You might say also, furthermore, moreover. Okay, so this one is a little different. They're telling you to have variety. Yeah, and this is the one that I was talking about, excuse me. This is the tip 2, how the same word can be used for both list and time. So you have to think about the relationship there, depending on how it's used. Okay? All right, now I'd like you to do practice 2 on page 186 and check your answers for that in the back of the book. Actually, if you can see those answers there, that's fine as well, but I hope you did those first. All right, so we're talking about patterns of organization, items pattern, and time pattern. They give you an illustration here and a little exercise to do, so read that, make sure you understand it. A list of items, 1, 2, and 3. Again, doesn't matter the order. Then we look at the time transitions at the top of 188. And then, of course, I'd like you to do practice 3. So pause the video, do practice 3. And if you didn't pause the video, shame on you. There's the answers. So you should have paused it and done the answers before I showed you. And then here's some answers for the rest of the page. All right, next we're talking about the time order pattern. As you already know, I said that time relies on things going step by step. You can't put one thing first. You can't say, open your books to page 250 and then come to class and sit down. No, first you have to come to class to sit down, then open your book. An obvious time relationship. It must be in that order, so it must be time. And they give you events, stages, or phases. Stages, like stages of development like a child. First they're a baby, then a toddler, then a young adult, a teenager, and an adult. So those are the stages, and they're time ordered. You can't be an adult first and then be a baby. Maybe some people would like that. That's not an option. Okay? Time order. Okay. And you probably already see the check your understanding and the explanation there. Please do practices 4 and 5. Pause it. If you didn't already pause it, too bad. You should have. Because now I'm telling you the answers here, if you can see this. If you can't see these answers, look them up in the back of the book, please. Okay, the next thing they talk about is a series of steps. These are directions. That's just like baking a loaf of bread. Okay, so here, first, buy the ingredients. Second, mix them together. Third, put them in the oven. Obviously, steps have to be done in that order. You can't put it in the oven before you buy the ingredients. Okay, I'd like you to pause this video and do practice 6 on page 195. And if you didn't pause the video, shame on you. There's the answers, if you can see that. If you can't see it, look it up in the back of the book, please. Okay. Again, I don't know if I'm saving you time. If you did practice 7, here are the answers. You should pause it and do it first and then look at the answer. And then there's some final points. Okay. All right. So what do I want to do here? Instead of doing these review tests here, I'm going to ask you now to do the online exercises in Townsend Press. So instead of having you do mastery tests to prepare for our in-class, I'm going to ask you to do the online Townsend Press items that are available to you now. under web links. You guys are obviously familiar with that by now. But before Thursday's class, I want all the exercises done on Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. So the next part of this lecture is going to be talking about Chapter 6. And I'm going to go quickly through it just like I did here. And I'm expecting you to follow along and study these at home so that you're ready to take a test on this when we come in. The test, as I said in the vocabulary video, will be 3 pages of vocabulary and 3 pages of reading. That's it. That's the best we can do with the missed class and my injury. I'm sorry for that, but I'm also trying to be as generous to you guys as I can, and we'll talk about some other accommodations I'll make for you when we come to class next week. Okay, so that takes care of Relationships 1. The next thing I want you to do, though, is to open your books to Relationships 2, and that is on page 221. So now's the video lecture for Chapter 6, and just like I did before, I'm going to kind of walk you through this and explain the chapter. I want you to read along and pause the video, do the practices, and we're just going to review this quickly together. Again, most of your practices for this are going to be on the Townsend Press website. Because I'm going to add some assignments there, and I'm going to ask you to do those before our class on Thursday. And I will have some time before our combination vocabulary and reading test to discuss any questions that you have and make sure you understand everything. Not perfect. It's what we have to do. Okay, so here we're talking about comparison, contrast, and you know that comparison is how things are the same, and contrast is how they're different. So that's that. Cause and effect. Also, we talk about one thing causes something else. Now, we can have several causes and one effect, or we can have several effects and then one cause. We'll see how that works with some pictures as we come. But these are the relationships that we're going to talk about. Illustration, that's by example. So I would give a definition maybe. A phobia is an irrational fear. For example, some people have a phobia about spiders and they're very scared of them even though most spiders will not hurt them. You get the idea there? Okay, so I gave you a definition of a term phobia and then I gave you an example or illustration of what a phobia is. Next, comparison and contrast. It really can be comparison and or contrast. So sometimes things compare. They use compare words like similarly or this is like that. Those kinds of words, we'll see them in the chapter, to compare how they're the same. Contrast, of course, is different. These big cars have more room, however, they also take more gas. Something like that, showing you the different ways to view one car, for example. Okay? And then, of course, cause and effect. That simply shows us that if it rains outside, the cause, you're going to get wet. The effect. Okay? So cause-effect relationships we'll discuss in this chapter. Next page, 222. Okay, illustration here is a picture or an example. That's what illustration is, a picture or an example. So if somebody gives you an illustration in a book, that could be a drawing, or it could be such as different things. You will see some of those words here at the bottom of page 222. Obviously, you want to make sure you know what these words mean, but all of them are illustration words, and that they mean they're going to give an example or a picture. So I'd like you to do practice 1, pause the video and do it right now. And if you didn't pause it and you're just waiting to look at the answers, well, I can't stop you from doing that, so there they are. The next thing we're going to talk about, go ahead and check your answers, but also we're going to talk about definition and example. I just gave you one. A veterinarian is someone who cares for animals' medical needs. And then, for example, they care for pets like cats and dogs, and they care for farm animals like horses and cows. So this is a definition of veterinarian, and this is one example of the animals they treat, and here's another example. So this is the definition and example pattern. You'll find that commonly in reading assignments. Okay, I'm going to show you my annotations here on this video. I'll let you compare those to your own book and read those carefully. If I mark it, I felt it was important. Here's the checking your understanding. If you want to pause the video and do it and then look at these answers, that's fine, but there they are. Okay. Next, I'd like you to pause the video and do practice 2 on page 226. So pause the video, do it, and now come back and you can check your answers. If you cannot see the answers again on the video very well, you may look in the back of the book for the answer key. Okay? Here on the next page, our comparison, and this is page 227 now. At the bottom of that page you see comparison words. All of these words show how things are similar or like each other. So all of these words you should be familiar with. Look them up and make sure you know their meanings, please. Okay, I'd like you to do practice 3 on the next page, 228. Pause the video and do it. And now you're coming back after you've done it, and here are the answers. Again, if you can see them, that's great. You can check your answers here. Otherwise, look in the back of the book. Next page is the opposite, okay? We talked about comparison words. Now here, this is at the bottom of page 229. In chapter 6, these are your contrast words that show differences. I like pizza, but my sister likes spaghetti. The weather is cold, yet I still want to go out for a run. You get the idea. This is showing differences. So look up all of these words and make sure you understand what they mean and how they're used. So there's your example. That's going to come back in a minute, I hope. Yes, there. Sorry about that. Okay, so those are important words. Let's see what's next. All right, I'd like you to pause the video and do practice 4 on page 230. My assumption, though, is that you paused it and did it, and I'm going to save you some time by showing you the answers right there. However, the important thing is our next section at the bottom of the page, comparison or contrast. Okay, so comparison, A is like B, contrast, A is different from B. Very simple. Okay, do practice 5 on page 232. Pause the video, do that, and I assume you paused it and you came back. If you can see the answers here, fine. Otherwise, please look them up in the back of the book. The last thing that we're going to talk about in this chapter, I believe, is the cause and effect pattern. I've already talked a little bit about that. Something causes something else. Here are the words that we use for cause-effect. I'd like you to look up those words. If you're not sure what they mean, go ahead and put them into your search engine or your dictionary, and you can find out all their meanings. Make sure you know what they mean and how they're used. We'll continue to practice that. Do practice 6. Pause the video. If you didn't pause it, well, there's the answers. Okay? So go ahead and make sure you know the answers to chapter 6. But here's the important part of the page. This is at the bottom of page 235. And we see one cause with different effects. And then we see another with a bunch of causes and one effect. So here I put an example. You can't read this. One cause, pollution. What's the effect of pollution? It makes people sick. It harms plants and animals, and it makes dirty streets. So one cause, pollution, and 3 effects. Over here, we have 3 causes: poverty, drug abuse, and poor education. And those 3, crime increases, have 1 effect. So here we have 3 causes: poor people, abusing drugs, and not educated. And all of those cause them to resort to crime. So there you see the other example. Okay. For the check your understanding, I'm just going to see if you can see that. Hopefully that you can just review your answers to check your understanding there. It's probably in your book already. Next, at the bottom of the page is practice 7. Please pause the video, do it, and check your answers. That's on page 237 and 238. Okay, it says note on main ideas, patterns of organization. Remember that paragraph's main idea often indicates a pattern of organization. So if it says there are 3 important steps to making a loaf of bread, you all know that's going to be time. So the main idea could tell you what the organization is. All right, they give you that example. Here's practice 8. Again, pause the video, do it. Okay, there's your answers. Check them in the back of the book if you can't read those. Okay? And there's the rest of the answers to the last practice. And then it says here, this is kind of important, I'll put it up. As a final point, keep in mind that a passage may be more than one pattern. And then they give you this example here at the bottom of the page. I hope you can see that this is cause and effect, and then this is contrast. So they're showing the reason. So we have a cause effect. The reason is this, in the two different sides of your brain, and then they're talking about the right side and the left side, as you can see that here. Right. Of course, there's chapter review. You can use that to help you study. Okay. Now, so that is our review of chapters 5 and 6. And if you properly paused the video and done those practices, then you are now prepared to go to our Townsend Press website and complete all of the available chapter 5 and 6 online exercises in preparation, again, for the reading test for 5 and 6. Unbelievably, I know you're shocked, we are going to test on chapter 5 and 6 when we come to class on Thursday. Before the test, I will open up for any questions that you might have about any of these transitions, relationships 1 or relationships 2. We'll have a short period of time to talk about that, and then I'm going to give you one test, 3 pages of vocabulary and 3 pages of reading, and I'm going to call that your test result for these chapters. Again, because of the weather, because of my accident, there's nothing more we can do. That represents my best effort, and I'm sure that if you give your best effort to this, you'll succeed on our test, as I'm sure you will, because you're great students and you're understanding students. So thank you for bearing with me through this difficult time. Not only the weather, but obviously me being injured has not helped at all. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed a long break and didn't completely forget what we've been talking about, but please make sure before class on Thursday that you, 1, review all the vocabulary words, make sure you're ready, and 2, review all of these chapters in this video lecture and the online exercises for chapter 5 and 6. Those will prepare you for the test that I'm going to give you on Thursday. So 3 pages of vocabulary, 3 pages of 5 and 6 reading, we're done. And that's going to be pretty much our class on Thursday. Come to class, quick review of the relationships chapters. Any final questions? Then I pass out the test, we take it, and we're done on Thursday. I'll obviously post other video lectures for our upcoming weeks, but we'll just do the best we can to get the work done that we need to do. Thank you very much for all of your understanding and your hard work over the next 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days before we come to class. So take a couple of days for chapter 5, a couple of days for chapter 6, quick review of vocabulary, and I'm sure you're going to be ready for these tests. So for now, I'm going to go post these videos for you on YouTube, and I will see you in class on Thursday. Thank you so much. Bye.